Hi guys, now in this video I'm going to show you how to paint an ear. Now we're going to paint the ear looking face forward like we are right now. If you look at the ear, it kind of spans across the center of your pupil again all the way down toward your nose. This is basically where your ear will be. Now if I was looking at a side profile of my face, the ear would be much more visible. Think of it like a big hook shape. For example, I draw it out with like a large big circle on the top and it kind of curves down at the bottom. This is going to be the first part of drawing your ear. Second, there is a Y shape that'll follow. So first we have a hook and now we have the letter Y. Putting both these shapes together is kind of going to be the basis of your ear. And then finally we have like a little shape after that that is just like the tip, the little tip, the cartilage that sticks out in your ear. It kind of looks like a reverse number 3. That little piece of cartilage would usually be around this side. And now, of course, this isn't just how we're going to draw our ear. Using some straight lines to really add in the definition, look at your ear and see that little flap that folds over. I'm going to start drawing that out. This is basically what your ear is going to look like. It's just a series of shapes kind of folding in on each other, just like a pretzel. And now that Y shape is of course going to be much thicker and is going to have a few lumps going up and down and here and there. So now that you have a basic idea of what your ear will look like when you're looking from the, side profile of your face, let's basically paint the ear looking straight on. What will it look like? The shapes are of course going to be a little different, but they're going to be the same essence of what I showed you earlier, just at a different angle. I've kind of already drawn in the hook. That is the basic outline. Now here is where that little number 3, that little cartilage part of our ear will be. I'm also going to draw in the Y shape. Remember, it doesn't have to be exactly like the side profile that I showed you, but it's going to be at a different angle. We're just going to change it a little bit, but essentially remember that Y shape when you draw. And of course, remember that the bottom of the hook will be your earlobe. We're going to add like a little more flesh to it so that it's a little bigger and it sticks out more. Okay, so we're now done drawing. I'm going to start with the painting. Usually this part of your ear, if you were to look at yourself in the mirror, straight on, that part of the ear is a little more in shadow. So let's just color pick that darker brown that we had on our nose and lips and just kind of fill in that whole area with the brown. Remember to do this on a new layer, and you can do this below your drawing so that you can still see the outline. And now I'm going to start adding in that dark shadow on the inside. You can just go ahead and use like a normal round brush, dual brush again with that grain. No need to add any shape dynamics to it. We're going to just be working rough and loose. And of course, in the beginning, I'm creating very graphic shapes as I go. Again, you're going to start out big and then work out small. I think that my ear looks a little too mushy and round right now, so I want to bring in those nice hard angles. You know, when you really start drawing in your work with these straight lines and you think of it in the form of planes and shape, it can make your drawings and faces and objects look much more defined and realistic, actually. Of course, as I'm painting, I'm doing this on a new layer and I'm kind of drawing and painting over my outline drawing. That is totally fine. You're going to basically define your ear and paint over your drawings as you go ahead. Again, because we're working in big shapes, this is much easier when you follow this process. And now in a new layer, I'm going to color pick the background skin tone that I have and just kind of erase out all that excess line work that I had on my drawing. We don't need our ear to look so big and mushy right now. Everything looks a little too sketchy. We want to sharpen things up a bit. And now I also want to start adding in a little bit of that highlight onto the cartilage of my ear. We want to start making certain parts of it pop. And also let's like blend in everything because right now that darkness looks so dark and graphic. We want to make it more smoother. Now again with my dual brush, I'm just lightly sketching in the shadow at some parts. You know, now it looks like the cartilage is very gradually coming in under the flap of that ear. And of course, I'm going to use a slightly lighter skin tone to really bring in that pop of highlight to the front of our ear. This is the part of the ear that is most, toward us. Like it's the part of the ear that is probably the most visible since it's the one that we would see first, and then the rest of the ear would go dark from the background. Now let's add in a little more highlight to that Y part of our shape. It's almost like two little cartilages kind of coming together. Now I'm going to break up this dark shape that's at the bottom, and I just want to add in a few patches of, light and skin tone to it, just so that it looks like the ear is curving inward. And of course, let's add a little more shadow over here. Again, I'm adding in just some slight highlight as I go, and just really bringing some things forward and some things back. And now I think that we need to break up this little Y shape a bit more. Right now it looks, too much like a big flat shape. Let's give it a little more definition. And of course, let's fix our earlobe a little more. Right now it looks very muddy and messy over there. If I look at my ear, it doesn't really have that shape. I think it needs to be a little more filled up and rounder and fuller. I'm just, with my angled brush, I'm just kind of really adding in those lines and painting in that shadow and highlight, just to give it that cool textury feel. Now I'm just going to add in a few more pops of highlight in certain areas, just so that they pull out certain parts of the ear and push back a few more. Again, I'm always color picking from the nose as I'm doing this because I want to maintain that skin tone throughout. Let's add a few highlights to the Y shape to really just, pull it out. And I'm just going to add a little more, lightness to these darker areas, just so that they don't look so graphic and strong. And now, of course, we're pretty much almost done. I just want to add in that last effect like I did with the nose. Just a hint of red on a multiply layer. This just brings in the warmth and the life to our painting. And that's it, guys. We're done. This is basically how you paint an ear, looking at a face right from the front. In the next and final video, I'm going to just conclude with how to basically paint your face with a light outline and wash so that it all can come together.